Welcome to the Lighthouse. I'm your host, Ryan Hopenhauser, and this is the show for business leaders to unlock their full potential. Together, we're going to explore the tools, strategies, and insights that you can use to navigate the complexities of the entrepreneurial mind, maintain your mental wellness, and elevate your leadership to take your business and your life to the next level. Each episode, we're going to bring you powerful conversations with various leaders across multiple industries who have the mindsets, strategies, and tools that they've used to transform their own journey. So whether you're here to lead your team better, grow your business, or take your life in a completely new direction, this is the show for you. Let's illuminate your path forward. Welcome back to the Lighthouse. I'm excited to be joined today with an entrepreneur who has been a friend of mine and a leader in the fitness industry. And I think that the way he is building this next evolution of his fitness business is something that is different, especially just the way he's approaching it from building the brand from the foundation up. So I'm excited to have Joseph Hawthorne today on the show and talking about what he is doing with Block Fitness and just the brand he's creating, the culture and the community for the clients. It's something I've been watching. I don't think he knew that, but I've been watching it. It's really, really different. And I'm excited to talk about it and hear some of the in-depth stories and lessons that he's learned over his entrepreneurial journey. So Joseph, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, appreciate it, Ryan. Great to be here.
Where I always like to start with this is going back, like the whole topic of the show is we talk about leadership through the lens of not just business, but also through life in general. And I know that you've had an interesting path getting into entrepreneurship. That's kind of where we like to start is what got you into being an entrepreneur? What, forced you to, I guess, lead yourself and have to take on that long journey that we all know it can be?
Well, I guess I could go back really far. My first attempt at entrepreneurship happened when I was about 10 years old. And so I just started playing some music and was renting a saxophone. My family was very low income and to the point where we had passed down cars and clothes type of thing. Never really felt it because the love and family relationships were so amazing, but wanted to have my own saxophone as I was learning it. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And so we didn't have the finances to do so, but we lived about a block away from a little 9-hole golf course. And so just noticing every day that there was this opportunity to sell them, waters and different things. And so my dad had made the suggestion. He was like, yeah, why don't you just buy a case of water and take it down there and then see if you could sell to some of the golfers right off the 8th tee off. And, it was summertime. And so I did a little red wagon, loaded it up with some waters in a cooler and that I had saved up from mowing the lawn of my neighbor to then be able to go buy the waters. And so it was, that's where it kind of began. And in that first summer made $400 and something. And it started out as just, bottled water. And then bottled water turned into one of the golfers saying, oh, you don't have any sodas, kid? So then naturally I had a little bit of money. So then from that water money, bought sodas. And then one of the next golfers a couple days later was like, hey, you see my ball come over here? And I did. And so I had gone over to where it was. It just like fallen and bounced off, found it, gave it back to him. And he laughed and smiled. And he said, you could have held that for me and you could have charged me 25 cents for it. And he was just making a joke, but probably was an entrepreneur himself and was probably passing on a lesson that I had no clue about until later on in life. And so there was a little wash. And so the next thing it was like, well, let me add this to my business. I had no idea really what I was doing. It was just that, went and got 3 golf balls, put them in a little package together and sold them back. You could buy 1 for 50 cents or you could buy 3 for $1. And so it just became
it's so cool that at that age that you were figuring out these things along the way, just by by happenstance, but also to have the knowledge and intellect at that time. You'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. Okay. It's just so cool that it worked out like that.
Well, and I think it's kind of the age old test. There's kind of a running joke within the world of the entrepreneurship kind of testing world of the marshmallow and sticks and string test. I don't know if you've heard of that one. Yeah, you already know in your head. So you've got this test where they've found that entrepreneurs can build with just marshmallows and some sticks and some string, a pretty good structure. And the whole goal is to get it as high as possible. Well, the group of individuals that trumps them are naturally engineers and architects. They always tend to do the best. And then the ones that usually match the engineers and architects and do better than entrepreneurs are kids. And then the people that do the worst are the ones with MBAs. They overthink things, right? And so I think
creativity.
Yeah, as a kid, you're just like, let me just try stuff, right? Let me just whatever. And then I had random guidance from different golfers that were providing insights, you know? So anyways, after 2 summers, I was able to buy my saxophone. And so I think that's where my entrepreneurial journey began.
Yes.
But even on the hard lessons, the only reason it was 2 summers as opposed to further was the golf course figured if we put a very attractive 20-something-year-old in a golf cart at the 7th hole, right before where my little business operated at the 8th tee off, and she has beer, well, naturally, people don't want to, supply and demand, commodity, and style of branding all come into play. And so my little business didn't do so well after that. So I got to learn that lesson fairly early on as well.
It's such a great lesson to learn, though.
Yeah, it really is. And so I think that's where I also kind of learned like seasons and pivots. And so, it was just tried a million different things, service-based, washing cars and, mowing lawns and doing different things until I got into the family business, which was a coffee business that my dad owned, a little really small mom and pop style coffee cart, like an outdoor kiosk thing. And
really nice.
And then didn't do anything again until after college. I worked at some different places through college to get through, and then started a landscaping business, fresh out of college. Yeah. So that's kind of a funny one. I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, and I just graduated college, and I was a store manager at Starbucks, and the regional director was like, great. We've actually been waiting for you to finish graduating because you've been managing this one plus helping out with another one, like simultaneously while getting your degree. We need you to have your degree in order to be a district manager. I've got a position that's going to be open. So I'd love for you to go interview for it. And in essence, it felt like, and no way to know, but it felt like I was literally being groomed and primed for the job, the position. And he was very adamant. He's like, this is where your career with Starbucks really takes off. And phenomenal company, thoroughly thrilled to have worked with it for how long that I did. But it was literally in that moment that I thought, man, this is no longer a job. This is not even just a career. This would become my life. And so instead of accepting the opportunity to go interview for probably a cushy salary, next level position, I turned in my 2 weeks notice without a plan.
I'm just curious, what did he say when that happened?
He laughed because he thought I was kidding. He did not believe it at all. And I had to explain. I was like, no, man, I got to do some stuff entrepreneurial. Like, this is the direction I need to go. So I started a landscaping business and because I wanted something that was low risk, easy to do. And I'd mowed lawns, cut bushes before back, in high school to make money. And so it just seemed like a good thing to kind of test and get my feet wet. And it's pretty easy to grow. It's just hard to get the quality of staff to maintain just with the nature of the business. So yeah, fast forward a year, I had to sell it just because my body was destroyed, and then was going through rehab of my body and fell in love with the kind of human body mechanics of stuff. And that's where I found myself in the fitness space. I was like, man, I love to help other people feel less in pain and feel more in control of their body, feel stronger, feel better.
Well, and I think that like kind of fits too of like just solving problems, it was like every problem you solve, there was a new lesson learned, a new evolution of business for you and a new way that you approached it. And ultimately when you solved your own problem, it was like, hey, let's go do that with other people, which I feel like is kind of one of the next steps in the entrepreneurial journey we all reach, is like we solve something for ourselves. And it's like, hey, I can go teach someone else to get out of that same place I was in because I never thought I could get out of it either.
Absolutely. I feel like it's almost like playing a video game and you beat a boss. And then the next time you were to go and start over again, well, you already know from the lessons you've learned on how to accomplish that. So you can get to that level or beat that level really quickly. It's just that with entrepreneurship, there's endless levels of new bosses to try and attempt to beat. But I think that's the enjoyment of it. It is, what next complex problem do I get to try and figure out? And that's the exciting part. It's the staying curious. Same way with figuring out whether I was going to sell sodas or golf balls in addition to waters. It's that whole thing is just cyclical. It's just on a grander level, or different level, I should say, a new boss.
Just I guess to fast forward to where we are today, because you started your fitness business when you were in California, right? And then transitioned from there to Arizona. So you had to sell that, which I think actually coincidentally, I've interviewed the person you sold that to already.
Yeah, he's rocking it still. He's about to open his second place now. And so it's cool to see a lot of those members that I've known for now almost 12 years who are still within that same hub. So I'm pretty stoked for him and what's happening there. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you've listened to the show before, that's the episode with Marcus, just and talking about his story, and I didn't know until that episode that you guys were connected, so it was so cool to find that out, and it's like really, like it's just such a small world. But yeah, man, like so cool that you ended up selling it to him. He's doing great with it, and then you started what you have now, which is Block Fitness. So tell me about that. Like just, I guess with all the lessons that you had learned and all the different experiences you had with the variety of entrepreneurial, I guess, adventures you went on, what was your approach like and how different was it going into Block Fitness compared to before?
Yeah. So I think before, with the fitness space, a lot of it for a lot of people is look at me, look at what I've done, and look at how I've fixed myself. I can fix you too. And so the attachment for a lot of members becomes to the owner or the personal trainer or whoever it may be. And it's almost this kind of egotistical savior complex that seems to show up. And so I really wanted to put an emphasis starting this on it is not about me, it is about you. And we are just here as guides, but you actually have all the answers and solutions. And our goal is to just enlighten you with what those are. And so it's trying to give people back the tools that they already, could have and just didn't realize were there. Instead of it being all about just, coming to celebrate with us and making it just like a really hype community thing. And the main focus with that, as I saw from, letting the other business, transition to Marcus, is that the attachment to a person is not a good thing because at the end of the day, seasons of life, and especially within the fitness space, you're going to have transitions and you're going to have change. And so I didn't want clients to have an attachment to me or even to a specific coach or even an exact, location and style of training. I wanted them to fall in love with the process so that they make taking care of themselves, leading themselves, the forefront of the mission and the objective. Because in 10 years, there's a strong chance that a business won't be there. Not many last 10 years, as we know. And I'm hoping that is not the case for Block Fitness. But
I just gotta say, so good. Like I love that on so many levels because, one, I went through that experience, both my wife and I, when we stepped away from coaching. Like it was so interesting to us. We had members break down to us about how we couldn't do it. And we don't want you to step away, very, very upset. And we also had members that were angry. And it was so confusing for us on so many levels because we didn't understand. We knew that we obviously had a connection, but we didn't understand what the consequence of breaking that connection would be. To have that foresight, and again, from past experience is so important. And the other thing I love too, that you talk about your focus of Block Fitness in showing them that they do have the tools. It very much aligns with everything I do with the Lighthouse and leadership and this whole idea of leadership psychology is you have everything you need within you up here, whether it's mentally, physically, you have that capability and it's just giving you tools to unlock it. And but you're actually doing all the work, and I think that's the same thing with fitness. At the core of it, it's the individual who's doing everything, and the better that you equip them, the more likely it is for their success.
So good. Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's why I love the whole Lighthouse analogy. It's one of the greatest ones that you could possibly have to just kind of showcase all of that. So it's great. You're still going to have the attachment, right? People fall in love with certain connection that they have with certain trainers or an owner, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to negate that within our system. I want that to be a thing. I just don't want to necessarily be that they are only going to work out if it is with one person when I'm trying to set them up for success to build lifelong habits, right? So that's the more important piece.
Yeah. And as someone, again, who tried to go through that process, and I guess we went through that process and it was rough. I'm just curious for my own sake, what are some of the things that you guys have implemented to help alleviate that? I imagine, and it's a lot of systemization and specific communication and language, which is stuff that I just love to hear about. So I'm curious of what you guys are implementing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main goals is that it is touch points with each person that is working at each facility. And so that it is much more of a dispersed shared thing. One of the main things that we'll do is when we have somebody first even make an initial reach out contact with us, we have one person who usually handles the initial call. just a understanding, see where they're at. That's usually my wife that handles a lot of those. Sometimes, we have a couple other people as well, including myself, that it can be if needed schedule wise. But ultimately, that's a first connection with one person. And then all those notes are detailed, passed off to then the person who's going to do our initial assessment. So we take that. Now it's that showing that, hey, when I talked to so-and-so, they filled me in on all this stuff about you, elaborate on any of this. Am I incorrect? Am I wrong? But shows we're connected as a team. And so that it's not an attachment to now I've shared here and now I need to go share again. That's not a fun, customer journey experience. I don't know if you've ever had that where you're on hold and then you like share everything about a credit card and then you do it again. You're like, really?
I hate that so much. And I watch that all the time happen. So I'm so happy to hear that you've put things in place for that, because again, it's so simple to overcome. You just need to say, hey, I talked to so-and-so already. But I understand that frustration from a client standpoint when I have to repeat what I've already told to someone, especially if it's personal. Like, I don't want to do that again,
Yeah, especially if it's that emotional thing of like, I'm embarrassed to be in the gym, because I've just had a knee replacement and I don't feel like I can get down and up off the floor. So am I going to be able to do this? Right. Like it's like that could have been an emotional share on the phone. They don't want to go through that whole like roller coaster again, but it's just to say, hey, I've already talked. We already know. Now I'm going to do your movement screen so I can see how this works. So I can put together a plan for you. And so now we've had two people have those points of contact. So now they feel like connected with both because there's already a connection within that team. And then that handoff period is where then it's like, hey, on your first day, like, let's get you scheduled on your first day. Like, this is the coach that is the main coach there during this hour. And this is the other coach and the other coach that is also going to be here, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's passing on that. And we have a note system and a way to formulate that so that those coaches already have the same information. And so now it's like, yes, this is your point of contact that you first had. This is the person who did your initial screening and assessment. This is the person that you're working with at your first session. And then the clients are able to schedule whichever sessions happen to work for them, even though it is a personalized training plan specific to them. And so they feel individually cared for, but they're sharing a space with other people going through the same kind of journey, but they never feel obligated to keep up or anything because no one's doing the same thing. But they also feel like, oh, any of these coaches, anybody here can help take care of me within that. And so I think that's kind of the main piece with which allows them to not feel connected and just tied to one individual. And all of the coaches in the moment, even though a plan could be written up for somebody's rotator cuff issue that they were dealing with, and we're building a strength plan for the rest of their body, et cetera. If the coach on staff sees something, they can make an adjustment. It's changed in that client's app. And so it's changed in their training plan. And so then they're feeling taken care of by everybody. And so it doesn't feel like there's and we're trying to eliminate the hierarchy, right? Because oftentimes I think what they people get associated with is, well, I want the person who's the best to teach me or the person who knows the most. And if you can level the playing field to say, we're all doing this together, we all have you, like that's, I think, a good way to do it. And so it eliminates that piece and it gives all of the coaches autonomy. And so I think that's a big piece of allowing people to grow and having kind of your levels of leadership within, because everybody feels like they have a say.
Yeah, I think just because of like the fitness industry in general and the variety of times that someone would frequent something, like we would talk about in our facility that like the evening people didn't know the morning people. Right. They might have never, ever seen that coach or even communicated with that coach until one day they have to go in there at an off time that they haven't been before. And it can create a point of friction if you don't have the things in place, which in the beginning we didn't have, and I learned that hard lesson of like, oh yeah, like not everyone sees each other every day. So we need to make sure everyone knows who everyone is, whether it's points of contact or, a lot of our stuff was through video and emailing out introductions. But it's so important, I think, to have everyone have those touch points like you've done, because otherwise you might not even know who's on the team. Yeah,
absolutely. And we definitely don't nail it all the time. And I mean, the fact that between the two studios, it's right around 350 members. And we've got a team of 8 that is covering all of that. Some of our coaches work at both facilities. And so that is an insane amount of people to remember, just even name to face plus injury, right? Or And so, yeah, so we've tried, and that's where the other piece that I think really helps us is each person has their own individualized plan, or at least personalized, and they're operating that from an app that we've had customized. And so it's fully, fully branded and whatnot. And each member has their own plan. And so what's great is our coaches don't have to know everybody's things, because in general, the plan is already pre-built for the individual based on their needs. And the coach can just focus on what they're doing well, which is adjusting form, helping them make sure they're following through and correcting anything that needs to be, and then communicating, connecting. So I think that's the nice thing. It can just be, hey, I haven't seen you, haven't met you yet, or, whatever the case may be, but they can quickly take a look at what the client has coming up and go, all right, we know what's going on with the needs, or go check notes real quick. So it's not perfect, but it helps.
I imagine that you guys have a pretty robust team communication too. I guess a lot of team communication amongst everyone about things. And I just think of we used to have, I always said it was the secret sauce was and when you have teams that had that internal communication, whether it was through Slack or whatever app you use, but everyone's thing. So every coach knows about the injury that Cindy had this morning, right? And then they can check in with her, and it creates those magic moments. I think of Disney moments, or how can you create that magic moment for a client? And I would imagine for you guys, communication plays a huge role in that ability to do it.
Ironically, that's probably our one major area of opportunity where we are, compared to the way you just described it, I feel like we're failing miserably. And
oh, sorry.
No, it's great, right? And it's one thing that we've been going back and forth on ways to improve. We still use text messaging as our method, and
I really love Slack because it had channels and you can organize stuff.
Yeah. So, and I use Slack for other things, and we've talked about we just got to make something happen. So we blast out email communication so that everybody knows who's on pause and what's going on and what's medical and things on a weekly cadence. But to the degree that we want to be able to execute it, we have opportunities for improvement. And it's just the nature of it. We didn't realize it. It was needed. Our method worked with one studio. And now that we have two, we're nope, it doesn't work for two. And that's the funny thing, right? Scalability of things, all of a sudden new bottlenecks present.
Well, that's another great lesson of entrepreneurship, especially in a world today where every guru on the internet is going to tell you that especially in the gym world, that they're going to guarantee you. I just said this the other day. It's in 2020, it was hit 10K months. Now it's hit 100K months and work no hours and do nothing. And it's one, if anyone's done business, that there's not a blanket way to do that. You can't claim that across the board for every facility, because once you double up to 2 facilities, it changes the game. Once you double, or once you go to a third facility, or you expand your facility, or you add another tiered structure of training, it changes the whole system. So there's not ever, I think, just one blanket solution. There's always that evolution.
Yeah. And I even talked with a guy just this past weekend at a workshop event that I was at. He's got 150 members, and he operates out of an 800 square foot facility. And when you look at his profit margins and what he's taking home, he's killing it. And he's doing phenomenally well, and works about 8 hours a week as far as coaching, and does another about 15 hours a week of other stuff. And I'm like, dude, you're living the sweet spot. He's like, yeah, but I need to grow. And I hear you. Absolutely. And I was like, I'll show you where we're at, numbers wise and things like that. It sounds more impressive. And I was like, but if you look at your profit margin, what you're taking home for what you're doing a phenomenal job. And I'm not saying don't challenge yourself to grow and do more, right? But it's so often this, to what you're saying, where you're told you can do this, right? 100K months with, working no hours. And, but if he's going to, have to triple his facility, you look at those costs and you start to do that math, and you're like, yes, absolutely you can. But it also comes with a lot of extra work and headaches. And what is the time frame to do it? And is it worth it? So there's a lot of pieces to.
Well, that's what I feel like in what I've watched you build over the last few years with Block Fitness. I could be off, but I feel like you have a pretty strategized idea in your head of how you want things to be laid out. From the look of everything, even from the social media, it all has a very clean, specific style, and you can tell that there's intent with it. And I think that's a big part of it, is when you're building something like that, in order to make it as different as possible, it needs to have that pure intent from the individual, which is why the blanket thing doesn't always work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it very much is. Maybe it's a little bit of over control freak nature meets artistic style, but yeah, definitely for me, it really needs to. I feel like a lot of people are going in the same direction that I'm going now. But when I first started doing what I was doing and had the intent, it was kind of cool because I always, at least at the time, I hadn't seen it anywhere else within that world, within the fitness space world. The time that I was kind of building it out, everybody still had more warehouse style, graffiti on the walls, like those types of things, which, as a meathead style at heart, I love personally, but I knew the client that I was going for, which is going to be much more of wanting a curated elite hospitality type experience. And so I tried to base it off of, what do the nicest hotels have? What do they look like when you step foot in, and how do you feel? Yeah. And so to try to base it off of that and put that effort into the mission, the core values, and even the way that was represented from the name to the logo to the entire experience. So it's definitely awesome, definitely the goal.
So with that, I guess in how you're approaching it now, and thinking of, I imagine your leadership has also evolved. Like, what are some of the changes in the way that you're approaching leading now a team of 8 compared to any of the other businesses that you were in before, when you had to oversee anyone, whether it was management or even when you got into entrepreneurship and had employees?
Yeah, I think the biggest awareness that I've had as of late, in the last few years, has been the key importance on not being the guy. And it is all about highlighting the staff, the team, their skill sets, and bringing those to the forefront and making them the in-demand people, and really trying with all intent to get them to go wherever it is they want to go. And I think I always had that belief and that awareness, but I don't know that the ego ever let me not still be the face and be the guy. And that was one of the reasons I needed to make a shift from the previous gym and the style that it was and the model and all of aspects to starting fresh, blank slate with that new intent. And I could say that it was always there. I mean, when you look at, Marcus was able to take over, keep it going, and is now flourishing successfully. And actually the first coach that I ever hired, he has his own facility in San Diego and is rocking it. Coach that I started here at Block Fitness, helped her transition, built out a yoga studio and a yoga practice. And so it's always been my intent to be like, wherever you want to go, I will back you and support you and help guide you there. But I think now it's truly actually become real. It was always that, but then I had to be like, yeah, but see, I made them, right? Or yeah, but see, like this is what it is. Or it's because of me. And I'm like, no, none of that. No, they probably would have gotten there no matter what, without a doubt. It just would have been, a different journey or a different path, or, it could have been faster if I hadn't gotten in their way. So I think it's a lot of that, and just kind of realizing now that like true leadership is less about the telling and the guidance and more about the listening, acceptance, and support is how I'm kind of trying to approach things. I
love that because it reminds me of a book by Larry Yatch. He was a Navy SEAL, and it's like what leadership really is. And he talks about, and it's a different way I've ever seen leadership explained. And the way he explained like being a leader, your focus is to create the environment for the team to be able to accomplish the vision and the desired end state of the business. And I never heard it that way. And it's similar to the way you just described it, is like you realize that like it's not for you to drag everyone to the business, like the finish line. It's for you to be like the conductor and stand up there and put the pieces in place. And here's my vision and how can everyone fit there. And I think that that's a transition that a lot of entrepreneurs have difficulty making. I know it was really hard for me because of the ego.
Yeah. And I think the ego comes with like the fitness space. I mean, like, let's be honest, we've all done like some shirtless, shredded abs type things. And we're like, I'm the guy, right? Or lifted an insane amount of weight in comparison to what maybe a baseline standard is. And then we post it and it's this, show off for acceptance. And I think a lot of times that's what then translates into building a business. And we need to build that business to be a certain size, or we need to build the business needs to be showcased from a certain way. And it needs to be tied to my name, my face. And it's, if I have this and show this, then I'll be accepted. And then I'll be accepted, then I'll be loved. And so I think it's kind of that awareness of where is this all coming from and what am I trying to actually do? And once I kind of took a step back and was able to make more of a dissociated wrong word, but from that, it really helped. And so then that changed my mindset. And so it's like, well, what is the true mission? Right. And so I think that was like the biggest shift in leadership for me,
It's so interesting you say that. Like, my mind is kind of blown right now, because that's very similar to like my experience personally with entrepreneurship and with the gym is like, as you talk about like that intent. And when we started running, like, I was a sports performance facility, and then we got into adult training because I found out there were seasons of business and you lose money when everyone goes back to school.
all the kids are gone. All of a sudden you're broke.
Yeah. Like summer was great when we opened, and we lost 50% of our business overnight, and we're terrified. So we didn't make that mistake again, which again, that's how you learn those lessons. But when we started getting into running transformation programs, and then I was the first in my area to do the free 6-week challenge, and we exploded. And it took off in a great way financially. But what I came to understand after I sold the business and got away from it was that a lot of my identity was wrapped up in that success and the financial success of it, and being that guy and being the biggest business and the most profitable and all that stuff. And it took me away from my original intent. And it wasn't as fulfilling. Now it sounds obvious when I say this, when I got there, right? It's like, I did all that stuff, but it didn't actually fill that gap I was trying. Like, it was ultimately trying to fill that gap of love, and it doesn't work like that. It was like you're searching for this thing to get validated through with business, and the only way to get validated is through yourself. You can't do it through another thing, and it's just interesting that you talked about becoming aware of that, because like I came aware of that after the fact. So I'm so happy that you got this down. Like like just everything you're talking about and your intent towards going this. And that's why I wanted to talk to you. I just felt like this was going to go in this direction. so it's that's really funny, cool. Yeah. It's just really cool that it's unfolding like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm still completely blind. I mean, I would be foolish to think that I'm not to when it is happening, or different layers or levels of it. And I'm really hoping that 10 years
that's
from
how
now,
you know you're doing it though. It's because you don't know you're doing it. It's just like, I saw something the other day. I was like, how do you know you're walking the right path? It's because you can't see it.
Yeah, that's well said. That is such a cool statement.
Yeah, you can't see it, you feel it. I feel like you probably know if you're on the right journey with this, and if it's building in the right way. And I imagine there's also those intuitive senses, which is kind of a cool thing to talk about as well. There's probably some intuitive senses that have shifted you in how you've developed Block Fitness with some of those decisions you've made compared to before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting because I always thought of like, purpose isn't found, it's forged. And so I think, for me, I was like, maybe it feels like less of the intent side, or just like the intuition side. And it's a little bit of like, well, I want to go in the opposite direction of what kind of the mainstay is going. But also it's like, well, if I just stay the course with something that I'm enjoying, then some aspect is going to develop, and I can figure it out then. And I'll either be like, all right, that was a really good lesson, or I need to keep going, and it's what I wanted. Yeah. But a lot of times I'm like, I don't really know if I have an intuition with it. I'm just too dumb to stop.
Dude, there's something there. I don't think it's you're too dumb to stop, because you're a pretty smart dude in my book, man. What you said there reminded me about, I got a chance it was at one of Luca's events, and I was riding the bus. I sat with John Berardi, and sitting next to John Berardi, I had to ask him something about business. I'm so interested in what he had built. So I asked him, did you ever know, or did you ever plan on precision nutrition becoming what it would become? I think this was right after he had sold it too. He's like, no, he's like, the way I approached it was the same way I approached dating my wife. He's like, we went on our first date, and I was like, man, I really enjoyed that. I want to do some more of that. So I did. We went on our next date, and I was like, man, I want to do more of that. So I did. He's like, and that's what I do with precision nutrition. He's like, for every step, I was like, oh, I really that was really good. I want to do more of that. And I did more of it. And I was like, that's such a simplistic way of thinking about it. Like, a lot of, like, at least me, I overcomplicate the shit out of everything. So I was like, man, that's such a simple way to go about things. That's really cool.
Yeah. What is it? So like Occam's razor, or where it's like the simplest answer is usually the correct one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
or
I
one
think
of one of those.
it's one of those.
That's absolutely true. And I think that's what it is for me with Block Fitness. It's like, all right, we're having fun with this. This feels like a good path. Like, let's keep on going and doing more of this. So, and I think my kind of just going back to the leadership piece, my shift has just been the fact that I've realized within the fitness space, the trajectory is very, very narrow. It is either that you become a personal trainer and you max out your hours and the amount that you make, and you're working all these like ridiculous hours and you can't take a day off. It's usually 6 days a week, one-on-ones, style. And you can make decent money doing that, but it's exhausting. It's never ending because they cancel on you all the time. Like, oh, this comes up, and you have these weird gap hours. It's just, it's very challenging. Right. And there's a reason that average career length of a personal trainer is still between, 18 and 24 months for that reason. And so that's one path. Or you could go the, strength and conditioning path within collegiate setting or whatever that may be. And it's pretty low income for the insane amount of hours. And so again, to have a family, to be on the road, or to invest all this to be an AT, it's challenging. Or you're going to be within the group fitness, sector, and you got to be kind of a hype coach, but you also got to be a therapist, but you also got to be a motivator, but you also got to be, but you feel like you never quite really putting your brain to use with where you've done all this study. So with Block, I just realized like, man, we want something that's different than all of that, not just for the clientele sake, but also for coaches, and wanted to give coaches a path that they could actually make into a career if they saw fit, without having to be like, well, I've hit the ceiling here. Now the only option is to now go start my own facility. And the reality is most people don't want to start their own facility. And those that do usually highly regret it the moment they do it. And then there's a reason that, fitness businesses are the second most closed business, right behind restaurants. And when I think back to the 14,000 that closed during COVID, I really do believe, as I started Block Fitness, literally 4 months before, we were forced to then shut down, and I wasn't even fully breaking even at that point yet. And I survived. So I really feel that like, majority of them closed down because they wanted to. The business owner was fried, and it just comes with the nature of it. And so why would I allow more people to go that path because they feel stuck with the positions they're in? And so building Block, the only real reason to scale, other than my own massive desire for challenging my own skill sets of the next level in the video game and my own growth and development as a leader, is that it does give opportunities for coaches to be able to have a hierarchy ladder within. And so yes, you can be a coach. Yes, you can be a coach plus make more for, writing training plans and developing programs. Yes, you can get into some overall assessment, leadership, and testing, or you can get into, so there's different levels now that I have more spaces. And so it's that shift in hierarchy and development that can become a possibility, because now I can offer health insurance and all of the different things that couldn't be within, most circumstances, so that people can actually turn this into careers. 2 years is the standard, and all of our coaches, other than the one new one that has only been there almost a year as of next month, that's our newest. But everybody else has been there 2, 3, 4, years. And so it's like, we've already beat the norm just because we're trying with all our intent to give them the opportunities, and we're not perfect at it, and it's taking us a long time to figure it out. But
yeah, I think in the simplest sense, is you did the opposite, kind of like you assessed the marketplace, you assessed what you did before, you understood what was going to happen if you did the same thing, and then you started to make some big changes. And as a result, the way that you led into the business, everything's completely different, like from the infrastructure, the foundation. And one of the last things I wanted to ask you about today, you talked about in creating careers for coaches. I imagine in your style of training, it was probably strategically thought of, or because when you came to see me down here in Tampa and we went to lunch, you were down here for a very advanced certification for like training pro athletes, and you're applying this methodology to a general population, which I think is, again, interesting, because a lot of times with general population facilities, like let's just use a typical boot camp, quote unquote, your trainer's probably just the best workout mom 6 months ago who wanted to become a trainer, which is cool if they've gone through all the education, which we had clients turn to coaches and go through education, but it doesn't happen often, so I think like just having that educational foundation for your team is probably adding a different layer to the business and everything else that you do, because now you have this thing to say, hey, we're here.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely the most important piece. I truly believe it's one of the reasons coaches actually stay with a positioner and the facility the longest. And so that is totally the entire thing. Did the advanced certification down there, with pro athletes, and people are like, oh, is this the direction you want to go now with pro athletes? And I'm like, no, I just want to learn everything still that I possibly can. I'm extremely hungry for that. And I just started my master's in strength and conditioning here 2 months ago, which is probably the craziest thing I could have done while still trying to run 2 facilities and have a family. But ultimately, it's like, how can I consistently revamp our programs, our systems, our coaches, and our development? And so we've partnered with the local university here. We have an affiliate degree certification with them, to where now their seniors that are getting a degree in kinesiology or human performance are able to come to our facility for an entire semester and get actual credits for college for their degree by running through our internship. And so it literally is just then a way for us to, yes, it's great when you have that person who's had a lifelong love of fitness and gone through your facility and whatnot. And we have 2 of those coaches that are right. Yep. But one has spent 20 years working out multiple facilities and has won several medals in different weightlifting classes. And then the other one actually has a degree as a physical therapy assistant. So our kind of stay at home person is a little bit different as far as the previous caliber that they're coming with. But yeah, we're trying to just make it known that our facilities are the place you go to if you want to become an elite level advanced coach. And so just kind of showcasing from the start that one of our core values being consistent growth in education, we start it from the moment you're within your degree certification or the moment you get a general certification. Maybe you don't want to go to college. Hey, totally fine. Different paths, different ways, right? And so then, but it's 12 weeks of detailed stuff that we've mapped out for your growth and development. And it's not just on the training side and the biomechanics side, it's also on communication side of things. And, but then it doesn't stop there. And so I feel that the only way that can be a cultural value is if I'm embodying it myself, which is why I'm always like, what's the next certification? What's the next? And so now it's the next 2 years of a master's program. But yeah, it's just constantly revamping and evolving from there. So then the coaches they know that that's going to be a part of their journey here. And I think the clients feel that too. So
it starts at the top and it trickles down. So I definitely believe that people notice what you're doing to build yourself. And again, they follow suit. It's so funny over the years, and I'm sure you've heard the same thing in talking with different business owners, and those complain about a team member not doing something, but then they're also not doing the same thing. And they're like, well, that's why, no wonder, so yeah, when you have the leader who's going and taking the advanced certifications and pushing themselves, it does create that culture of growth, which is completely, again, a game changer for the business, which again, it starts at the top.
Yep. How you live is how you lead. It's always been the statement that I've just thrown out there constantly. I say it to the coaches all the time. How you live is how you lead. And anytime someone's like, man, I'm not feeling it today, I think I'm just going to go light. I'm like, you totally can. The world needs plenty of average people. So if that's what you want to do too, that's absolutely fine. But how you live is how you lead. So, you tell me how you want your kids to show up, but that's fine. And I just use it. I say it sarcastically.
Quick reframe on them.
Yeah. I say it sarcastically, but at the same time, I just try to reinforce hey, I never want you to push through pain. We're going to be strategic here, but discomfort is okay. We need to be, go through some uncomfortable moments within the gym, and that's going to carry over to the rest of your life. And every rep that you do that you're uncomfortable, safe, but uncomfortable, then that is how you are demonstrating how you lead and you're willing to push. And so that's just a very consistent message across the board. And so There's definitely times where I sandbag it and screw up, and I just ask the team, like, call me out. Like, it is, if you don't challenge upwards and you don't hold my feet to the fire, then we're not doing a good job as a team. So, you never let me do the same, that I won't let you do the same. And I always just tell people, whoever holds the standard the highest is the person that should be leading. And so if I'm ever not holding the standard the highest within Block Fitness, I should be replaced. So I challenge you to hold the standard higher than me, so I can literally be like, you deserve to be CEO. Like, I love that too. That is the direction that it should go. And it challenges me to be better, so I can challenge you to be better, so that we can all hold ourselves to that level that truly matters. And so it's just, whoever holds the standard the highest, they're in charge, they lead, and how you live is how you lead. So those are kind of the two frameworks that guide us.
Dude, I love that. And I think that's a great place to end. You heard him say it. How you live is how you lead. And whoever is holding the highest standard should be the leader. So if you're listening right now and you're an entrepreneur and you're not holding the highest standard, then maybe it's time to look in the mirror, just give yourself a little analysis, get a little awareness like Joseph talked about, and start making some changes. Where can any of the listeners find you if they wanted to look up Block Fitness or learn anything more about you and what you guys do?
Yeah. Blockfitco.com is a website. So if you're in the Tucson, Arizona, Oro Valley, Arizona areas, that's where we are. So we hope to expand to future areas as well eventually. We're doing it slowly and strategically. We're not in a rush. We don't want to do anything wrong. Or not necessarily anything wrong. We want to build it up, to serve people the right way. And online, if you just look up Block Fitness, it'll pop up on any of the normal socials. And myself, I think it's Joseph Hawthorne or Joseph.Hawthorne. I'm not overly active at the current moment with putting much out in the world for me, but probably not too hard to find.
Awesome. So if you want to find more about Joseph or Block Fitness, just Google him, search Joseph Hawthorne, Block Fitness. You're going to find him in Arizona. And if you're out there, go check him out, because what they do is truly different than most, if not the majority of training facilities around the country. So really, really cool to get to hear about how you built everything, Joseph. Thank you so much for coming on, and stay tuned, everyone listening, for the next episode of The Lighthouse.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. And if you are a small business owner and you are ready to unlock your true leadership potential, scale your profits, and build a business that actually thrives without you, here are 3 ways that I can help. Number 1, take the What Type of Leader Are You quiz. I'll leave it in the show notes. It's going to give you some great insights into the patterns that are basically running your leadership style and negatively impacting you and your team. The second way is the Lighthouse Leader Program. This is a intensive program for you to develop your leadership skills, remove the mental blocks that have been holding you back, and take you and your business to the next level. If you want to learn more about it, find me on Instagram, Ryan.Lighthouse. Shoot me a DM that says Lighthouse Leader, and we can talk details. And finally, the last way would be to work with me privately. I do mentor small business owners and their teams to grow their business and remove the owner from the day-to-day operations. And if you want to learn how to do that, same thing. Go on Instagram, find me, Ryan.Lighthouse. Send me a DM that says mentorship. We can talk about the details of one-on-one mentorship and how I can come in and help work with you and your team. But thank you again for listening to this show, and stay tuned for next episode.